Thanks for joining me today. I want to show you how to make homemade ricotta cheese. This is one of my very favorite things to do. I'm going to show you a little bit later how to put it into a cheesecake, but it also is great for your regular lasagna, hot appetizers, that sort of thing. There's just a million things you can do with ricotta cheese. Now, why would you want to do a homemade ricotta cheese versus a store-bought? It's kind of the same thing as making homemade ice cream. It's just got that extra flavor, that richness. It's just something that's like a step up that you can really tell a difference in the flavor in. It's super easy to do. We've actually got a recipe on the website. Just go to sweetwise.com and the recipes are right there. Just click down and you're going to see the recipe right away. And then you're going to find the cheesecake recipe there as well. So we're basically putting in a gallon of milk. So as I pour this, let me just tell you, this is like a 2-gallon pot. You can use like a 2 or a 3-gallon pot is fine. Make sure it's extremely clean. I even go to the trouble of boiling water in here first just to make sure that it's nice and sterilized. You don't want to have any bacteria when you're making cheese. All right, so this is just a regular homogenized gallon of milk from the grocery store, and I've got my candy thermometer here and I sanitize that as well. All my utensils that I'm going to be using, these are also sanitized, so just put them in the boiling water when you're preparing the pot. So the milk is in there, and now I'm just going to add a ½ cup of heavy cream. Just pour that right in. Now this is citric acid. It's a powdered citric acid. We sell that here at Sweetwise. It's 1 teaspoon. You're just going to pour that right in, and that's really going to help the curds help to start to form. Now I've got 2 teaspoons of salt. This is kosher salt, but I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon to start out with so that it can cook correctly, and I'll add that last teaspoon once we're finished. So once I've got all that in there, I'm going to go ahead and start my heat and just whisk this all together. Now let me give you one warning. I don't want this temperature to be too high. You don't want the curds to form too quickly. You want it to be able to take its time, at least 20 minutes before it starts to finish up to get to 185 degrees. So I've got my candy thermometer here. We're going for 185 degrees. But again, make sure it's not on high. You don't want to scorch that milk. Give it at least 20 minutes to get there so your curds are going to form properly. Now, every few minutes, while we're waiting for that 20 minutes to happen, you want to make sure that you're not getting hot spots in there. Once we've whisked this together from the beginning, don't go back and agitate it a lot. You really want it calm. Those curds are just going to separate naturally. But you do want to keep it from scorching. So just take a rubber spatula every few minutes and just really gently kind of go around the edge of the pan. You're just going to kind of rub that spatula really delicately across the bottom to make sure it's not going to scorch. And you're not doing that continuously. It's just every few minutes, just to make sure that it's not going to scorch. Okay, so this has been going for about 3 minutes or so now, and I can see that it's already starting to form a little bit of curd here. So again, I'm just going to go around the pot real gently, and then across every piece of the bottom just to make sure that it's not grabbing and scorching. The worst thing you want to do is give a burnt taste to your ricotta. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a movement, and then I'm going to let it continue to do its thing. We're going for 185 degrees. Okay, so here we're about 10 minutes in, and I just want to show you the progress. You can see some really nice curds starting to form here, really nice separation here. And again, we're not going to rush it. We're not going to try to stir that vigorously, just moving our spatula across the bottom like we did before. And we'll let it keep going about 10 more minutes. We're about at 115 degrees right now. Again, we're going for 185. Okay, so now we're approaching 180, and again, we're going for 185, but I really want to kind of be aware of my residual temperature that's going to stay in there. So I'm really going to cut the heat off when it reaches about 182. And I'm just going to give it a nice little stir here. You can see those really beautiful curds forming now. And again, I'm just kind of giving it a light stir across the bottom to keep it from scorching. All right, so we're about at 182, so I'm going to go ahead and shut my heat off. And I'm going to take my candy thermometer out and set that aside. Now if you're on an electric burner at home, don't leave it sitting on the burner. The gas is off automatically, obviously. I'm going to put the lid on. And now it's just going to sit and rest for 15 to 20 minutes, and that really just kind of gives it character and depth, and it really helps those curds solidify a little bit. Don't peek, don't stir. The best ricotta is just going to come from time and its own growth, not from manipulation. So 15-20 minutes, we'll set this aside and then we'll finish it up. Okay, so our ricotta's been sitting for about 20 minutes or so, just undisturbed with the lid on. So I think it's going to be ready. Let's take a look. All right, so I'm just going to take my lid off. It's still a little bit warm, which is perfect. All right, we're just going to go ahead and pour this into our dish here. Now let me show you what kind of setup I have here. I have a bowl in the bottom just because when I pour it through the colander, I don't need it flooding all over my table. I do kind of like to have the colander here just because it kind of helps keep the towel from sliding into the bowl and disappearing, and then I have to start all over. Just gives it a little bit more resistance. So what I have here, this is actually a flour sack, okay? And really be careful of the tightness of the weave that you get. We sell the right one here at Sweetwise. It's tight enough that it allows the cheese to stay in there, but it's loose enough that allows the whey to fall out. So let me show you what we're going to do now. We're just going to pour this right into the flour towel. Oh, those curds are beautiful. And this thin water here is actually the whey. Okay, so just pour it kind of slow so your towel doesn't slide in there. Get all of that goodness in there. And then you can just set that aside. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start tying this up, and I actually have, when I'm working with this at home, I just kind of tie this up and tie it onto my cabinet handles. I just built this kind of rickety cheese hanger. It's just kind of off the cuff, kind of PVC, just to hang it here so you can see what we're doing. So I'm just going to kind of tie this together, and I'm going to double knot it, and then I'll pull, those are opposite corners. It's a 4-corner towel. Okay, and now I'm going to pull this corner and this corner. I'm going to tuck under this a little bit just to keep that knot from falling down in there. Now I'm just going to raise this up a little bit so you can see the whey start to fall out. And I'm going to pull this over here so you can see how much whey has already fallen out. So what you're going to end up with is about 2.5 cups of ricotta cheese. And what you can actually do with this whey that's left over, a lot of people think it's just something that you throw out. If you make a lot of cheese, you're probably going to have more than you can use, but there's a lot of things that you can do with it. I like to put them in little ice cubes. You can use them in your protein shakes. A lot of really great protein in this whey. I give a cupful or 2 to the dog. Really great for the dog. She loves the taste of it. The rest I put in my garden. It's really great for your plants. Okay, so let me just show you the texture that we're going for. It's kind of a creamy, smooth texture. It's soft, but not too soft. It's definitely not runny. So what I really like to do is I'll serve this warm. So I'm just going to scrape some of this, and you can take it right out of the cheesecloth when you're ready. You can actually take a strainer and scoop some right out of the pot and into a bowl as long as you let some of that whey fall off. But if you serve this warm and you just put some fresh herbs with some garlic on there, and again, with this warm, it's just really great, like on a pita cracker, for example. Really great little appetizer. Now, you might be wondering about that other teaspoon of salt that we left out. What I want to do is I want to make sure that if I were to mix it in here with all the whey, all that salt's going to fall out. I really wanted to season the cheese. So after this hangs for the appropriate time, 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how you like your cheese, that's when I'm going to just softly stir in that last teaspoon of salt. Okay, so I let this hang about 20 minutes, and I went ahead and untied it. I'm going to go ahead and pull this down onto my workspace here. And it's a little bit soft, which is really great for this appetizer here. But if I'm going to do a lasagna, I want it a little bit firmer. But you can see this has a really great texture started there. So I'm just going to get this out of the way. And this last teaspoon of salt that I didn't add before, now is the point that I want to add this to it. If I had put it in with the whey before, it would have just flooded out and the salt wouldn't be in the cheese. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that last teaspoon of salt in there and go ahead and stir that in. And then once that's fully incorporated, I can just put that in a storage container or just go ahead and use it in my really great cheesecake recipe. So that's ricotta cheese. It's only got 4 ingredients. I think it's really easy to make, so I hope you give it a try, and thanks for watching.